Welcome. Microphone's on. This is like our 10th try tonight to try to do a live stream, so hopefully some people will pop in. This is a surprise live. We didn't really tell anybody that we were doing this. We figured we would just sort of we're doing some filming. We're filming some video tonight at our facility here. And if you don't know me, if this is your first video, my name is Ben, and you're here with Speedrun Seeds. I am the head breeder and one of the founders of Speedrun Seeds. Tonight we have a special announcement. We have some cool stuff to talk about, a little bit of a demo to do, and we are broadcasting tonight from our grow room. So this is one of our grow rooms, I should say. This is one of our main R&D rooms, and I initially tried to do this on my phone, but we're having some audio issues, so I switched to the computer. But that it makes it a little bit more difficult to do any kind of like walk around tour, but I can definitely give it a shot. But tonight we're here to talk about Full Auto. Full Auto is the name of our nutrient system. You guys might be familiar, might have seen us talk about our nutrient system in previous videos, and this is the announcement of that nutrient system being rebranded. We've had some pre-orders go out. Hold on one sec. Let me read the comment there. Good to see you, Ben. I didn't say no audio, so I'm going to assume that you guys can hear me, which would be amazing. I did a private video or a private live test to see. Okay, I see. Yes, perfect. Awesome. Okay. Well, now that we've gotten past that, literally, I think I had to do 10 live videos to figure out. I restarted my computer. And that, oh, nope, looks like I'm having someone give me some help here. Check YouTube live settings while live. Click on the settings icon and ensure the correct microphone is connected. Yeah, so I checked. It was the Yeti Nano, which is this one. It was connected. So I really have no idea why, because it was showing that audio was on, but like the little bar, even now, there's like that little audio bar where the dots are supposed to move when I talk, like an equalizer, but it's just like full. It's not moving at all. So I need some YouTube lessons, and I'll put out a call to action on the Facebook group to see if maybe there's anyone out there who has experience with streaming and could give me some tips on just kind of getting streams set up. I apologize for the lighting here. Maybe I could just like block it. Yeah, we've got grow lights on, and it does not play well with the MacBook webcam. But I'll pop over there a couple times now because it's maybe I could pinch to zoom. Yeah, I can do that. There we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, now I can read the comments from back here. So okay, all right. Tonight we're talking about Full Auto. Full Auto is a complete autoflower nutrition system that we have been working on for almost 2 years now. Like this in this form. It's we've been working on an autoflower nutrient system for ourselves for coming up on 5 years now. We've grown at this facility. There's an acre of outdoor canopy at this facility, and between the multiple run, we do 2 runs per year on our outdoor acre at this facility, and then this room is always full of plants. I will pick up the camera in a little bit and kind of show you from a little bit of a higher vantage point, and you can see the whole room. But this room is always packed full, and the canopy is full twice a year. So we're in between runs right now out there. But yeah, so between that outdoor space and this indoor space, we have grown at this facility coming up on 500,000 autoflower plants. I think we're over this year now. We're gonna pass 400,000. So I think we could call it 5. I think we could call it 500, 500,000 if we're over 400,000. But yeah, so between that those outdoor runs and this indoor room, we have grown so many autoflower plants, and we have gone through so many different nutrients. We have used tested every nutrient line in the in the grocery store. Like it's we don't necessarily go to the grocery store, but just like from your guys' point of view, it's every nutrient line that you might have seen before. We have tested, we have tried, and then we not only have Speedrun Seeds. Speedrun Seeds is our facility where we produce all of the genetics. And then we also have a company called Agrarian Advantage. And I am an agronomist. I work with Agrarian Advantage. I travel around the farms and we do teleagronomy, which is we communicate with the farms via video calls and a ton of pictures. And we have a whole system for farm management and agronomic services. So Agrarian Advantage plays a huge role in how we feed our plants. I as an agronomist for Agrarian Advantage, we create feeding schedules for other farms, we do something for ourselves. And the feeding schedule that we're running now is this. This is the feeding schedule that we've been running for a little over a year in this exact farm. And this is what we will continue to run because we have developed this to be the most efficient commercial autoflower nutrient possible. And now that we've packaged it like this for you guys as a home grower nutrient kit or a nutrient system, it is now the most efficient way to feed your autoflower plants at home as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how it works and why it's set up the way it is. I'm going to do a little bit of a demo for you guys tonight on how to use the kit and what you should be expecting from it. And let's see. Other than that, no major announcements that we're gonna announce on this video. We're gonna do other live streams this week. This is not the only one. We were doing some filming at the facility here, and I figured why not pop onto YouTube Live and have a little talk with everybody while we're filming our video. So I'm gonna actually unzoom so that I can see what's going on here. Okay, cool. So this was originally the autoflower nutrient starter kit, the Speedrun Seeds autoflower nutrient starter kit, which is what it still is on the website. It's going to be changing tonight. It's going to be going live for sale in stock. That's going to be happening at the end of this week. So that's the official launch is going to be happening at the end of this week. And right now we're just going to start dropping a ton of information on how to use it and what it is and why it is and all that good stuff. And there's people who have received their pre-orders, and I want to take a moment to talk to those people. If you're watching and you're one of the people that pre-ordered the autoflower nutrient starter kit, which you'll be receiving the full auto starter kit, but for any of you guys who pre-ordered, I just wanted to say thank you for helping support the development and the execution of this exact thing here. So being as we are a commercial facility, we use large 50-pound bags of nutrients, and we blend our nutrients very specifically for the needs of our plants here. And we have been making our own nutrients for a long time. It's been over 3 years that we stopped running nutrient lines just as they were from other companies and started kind of running our own nutrient system in a way by taking other nutrient lines and blending them together, adding some stuff from one nutrient line, adding a component from another. So yeah, that is what we originally started doing. And then we just figured, why are we buying, just as an example, we buy some Jax, like the Jax has a CalMag, 15-5-15 CalMag, and we would use that as part of our base. And then we would add in, a calcium product, and we would add in PK product and some nitrogen to balance it out. So we would be adding all this stuff and figure, why are we using a blended product from Jax when we can just buy the component parts and blend our own nutrients? We have, like I was mentioning earlier, coming up on 500,000 autoflowers, over 30,000 unique leaf tissue samples that we've analyzed at the lab for mineral content. And what that means is we'll take, I'll demonstrate it for you guys right now. Let me pull one of these, I'll try to find a smaller one. so you guys can actually see it here. You grab a plant and give you a little bit of insight into, yeah, this one's a little bit petite. This plant is at about, I would say, I think, date on here, 41 days. So I'm going to put it up on the table here for just a moment, and maybe I'll leave it there. I kind of like it there. So yeah, the way that leaf tissue analysis works is we'll take leaf tissue samples from a plant like this, we'll send it to a lab, and usually you're not taking a leaf tissue sample from one plant. I think we could sample this one, like this size of a plant. I could sample this plant. We need about 20 leaves. So it would definitely be quite a bit of a thinning out that would happen to get that nutrient sample. But if we really needed to know what was going on with just one plant, we could do a nutrient analysis on just one. But usually, oh, you know what? Microphone. I am so bad at this, guys. Let's see if I can swing this around. How about that? Nope. God. Okay. I think that's better. So anyway, yeah, we would sample the room, or we would sample one strain. So like we would take a particular strain, and let's say there's 100 plants in that strain. We would collect 20 leaves randomly throughout the entire 100 plants, and those leaves would be packaged up, sent to the lab. The lab would analyze it. We would get back the exact amount of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and all the micronutrients on that particular sample. So, you know, the way that works is we would take the most recently expanded fan leaves. And what does that mean? Most recently expanded fan leaves means the leaves on this plant that are their final shape. You can kind of tell by the way that they're pointing and just the size of them. We're not going for these immature leaves up here. We're going for these recently expanded fan leaves. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but we would collect these. We would, you know, they would go into an envelope. Those go to the lab, and that gives us insight. You know, it's kind of, we take a scientific approach. Like we're looking for data here that can help us steer the ship. Really, that's what this is we have a room this big. There's probably, I don't know, 300, 400, I think. I have to go look at the whiteboard, but there's a ton of plants in here, and feeding plants, keeping every single one of these well fed, keeping every single one of these plants growing as quickly as they possibly can, keeping every single one of these plants producing as much terpenes, producing as much THC, producing as much resin as they possibly can, is not easy. You know, you have to have a nutrient system that meets the needs of different strains. You have to have a nutrient system that meets the needs just of autoflower plants specifically, which are fed differently than photoperiods. And the way that we steer and the way that we've developed this nutrient line is just like I took one leaf off of this plant. We have taken over 30,000 across the clients that we cover with Agrarian Advantage and our own facility. We've taken probably closer to 35,000 leaf tissue samples for analysis. I'll put this back on. And that is the data that we have compiled. We've kind of mined that data in a way to each of those leaf tissue analysis data points are connected to yield data. They're connected to the THC testing COAs. So we know, like, if a plant was, really high in nitrogen at the end of its life, it will produce less THC, because we can tell by, the 50 different runs that we did where we can test the nitrogen levels in late flower. And if that's a bad example, because that's not exactly, it's not true that nitrogen levels in late flower are going to affect your THC like that. But that was just that, we can choose a nutrient. We can kind of look at the overall whole of the nutrient analysis for our crop, and we can make sure that we are giving the plants the inputs, like the correct inputs to produce the highest level of THC, highest level of terpenes, highest yield possible from an autoflower. And that data has formed this nutrient line. Like that's the kind of data-driven approach that we take with Agrarian Advantage and we take with Speedrun Seeds to build our own commercially viable nutrient line for ourselves so that we can make money growing autoflowers, which was for a lot of people, years ago, even maybe, as recently as last year, I would say last season, it was not even really a thing in the commercial cannabis industry for farms to go and grow a ton of autoflowers instead of photoperiods. It was just the consensus in the commercial space is that the autoflowers have lower quality, they produce lower yields, and they don't produce the same terpene profiles, and they don't produce the same terpene content. Like there's most farmers, most growers, even a lot of them today will answer, hey, have you ever grown autoflowers at your farm? They're going to answer that with kind of a bit of a laugh, because it's almost a joke to a lot of farms or farmers or growers, considering, like growing autoflowers commercially. So the way that we've been able to do that, the way that we've been able to create a genetic environment for us where we're producing the highest level of yield from these plants that we possibly can, and we can produce a nutritional and environmental system that allows us to get the best phenotypic expression from the plants. And if you guys don't know what that means, each of the plants is going to exhibit a phenotype, which is what the plant visually looks like, what the morphology or the physical structure of the plant. And each genetic, even if the two plants come from, so let's say you cross one plant with another, you take the pollen from one, you pollinate another plant, you make seeds. All of those seeds that come from that pairing are going to have genetic material that's going to be expressed in a different way. You're never going to have two plants that are exactly the same. You'll have two plants that are extremely similar, and those are the plants that we choose to breed with. But you're never going to have plants that are precisely exactly the same. Or I shouldn't say never, I guess it could be possible. But yeah. So in order to have those phenotypes express the highest level of quality that we can possibly get from them, we need to feed our plants in a way that's conducive, that is, it makes it work. It makes the plant, it gives the plant everything it could possibly need. It's not wanting for anything. There's no, what we call hidden hunger. Hidden hunger is your plant can look green. Your plant can look healthy. Might not even have any yellow leaves. It might not have any nutrient burn, but hidden hunger means that the plant, even if it looks healthy, it's not growing as quick as it possibly could. It's not producing the THC that it might produce if it was well, fed exactly as it needs to be. Maybe it's not producing the resin that it possibly could. So that is, hidden hunger, because you can't see it just by looking at the plant. There's no visible deficiencies, but overall, your plant is not getting everything that it needs, and it is it's not producing as well as it could. So that's the idea of building a nutrient line around autoflowers, creating a system that provides everything that the autoflower needs, which is, like I mentioned earlier, different from photoperiod plants. There's a much different nutrient load requirement for autoflowers, and that's something that's missing from a lot of nutrient lines out there. You go and buy, whatever, you name it, any nutrient line out there. Are they giving you an autoflower feeding schedule? And if they are, what's the difference? Are you looking closely at exactly how much calcium are you providing in the third week of flower, where the plant is putting on a ton of weight, the plant is developing and growing those bud sites very quickly? Are you providing enough calcium for that? Are you providing enough nitrogen, later into flower? As you move into flower, these autoflowers are still growing. There's that flowering stretch that lasts quite a long time in a flower. These plants are still growing. These plants, some of them are at day, I want to say 47, and some of them are, I think, at day 41. So these are absolutely in flower. These plants have buds on them. They're starting to produce trichomes, like they're just getting frosty, and it's very much a plant that is still growing, still requires a heavy nitrogen load. And nitrogen is required for photosynthesis, and photosynthesis is required for terpene production, for THC production, for yield maximization. You need photosynthesis, and it's nitrogen is something that's required all the way till the end. And there's a lot of nutrient lines that will pull that nitrogen back very severely, very to the point of almost not providing any nitrogen at all. And that's one of the things that we see that causes plants at the end to be at the end of their lives to be like completely nutrient deficient. And a lot of people will call it fade. Again, one of those controversial things that I've talked about before, and people don't necessarily like to hear this, but that fade that you guys might be going for, that you're attempting to have the plant, start losing its green color toward the end of its life. There are certain nutrient deficiencies that can be enacted on a plant to deliberately increase terpene production, to increase resin production. That's true. You can stress a plant to change the resin production that you're going to see from it. It's absolutely something that's possible, whether it makes sense, and if you're doing it in a way that's scientific, or if you're kind of just winging it and removing nutrients kind of willy-nilly and not paying attention to, hey, am I removing nutrients that maybe would have led to me getting an extra ounce of flower, or an extra 3 ounces, 4 ounces? The good nutrient systems, good environmental systems, you should be producing in a larger pot, or something like an auto pot, which is something we're going to be talking a lot more about on this channel, is auto pots, because it's at this point we cannot dispute that auto pots are the way to grow autoflowers. And just the fact that they are both called auto is a nice happy coincidence, but we've seen such good results from people using a good nutrient system, auto pots, and managing their environmentals well. We have seen in like a 3-gallon container, we have seen the results that you could get from a 15-gallon soil container. And there are some 15 gallons in here that I could possibly, I don't know, maybe I'll show you guys. It might be a little tough to do that. But with soil, and without an automatic feeding system like that, and that's a bottom-up feeding system, very different. But without something like that, the soil volume that you're, I wouldn't say that you require, but increasing your soil volume makes it much easier to increase your yield. Like that's, if with everything else being the same, a 15-gallon pot versus a 5-gallon pot, you will absolutely get a higher yield in the 15-gallon pot. And I've seen people on forums and Reddit and stuff try to say that, a 15-gallon pot is actually detrimental to your plant. It is going to harm it because the roots never hit the side. I don't know what their logic was, but absolutely not true. A larger pot will give you a larger plant to an extent. 15 gallons is probably slightly past the limit of where your diminishing returns kind of flatten out. So if you think about pot size like a graph, it would kind of, the plant yield and pot size are going to go up on the graph like this. And as the pot size increases, plant yield increases. And then the pot size will continue to increase, but your plant yield will flatten out. Slight upward trajectory, but it's going to flatten out, and then it'll completely flatten out. There's just, if you give it a 100-gallon pot, you're not going to get better results than say like a 25. You got 75 gallons of soil wasted because the plant is just not going to get bigger than a certain size in the time frame that it has to grow. So that's just a little bit of a spiel on pot size there, but it relates to how you feed and how much water they require and all that kind of stuff. But auto pots, kind of coming back to that, I've seen results from those that you just, it's the way to go. I'm going to read some comments real quick and get a little drink of water here, but just to make sure I'm not missing anything that you guys would like to hear me talk about. Sensi, I thought you said you hate Jehovah's Dream Cats. I was like, what do you hate about them? Okay, looks like you guys are kind of talking to each other, which is good. I saw what's a 15-gallon pot yield. A 15-gallon pot yield, we can consistently get over a pound. So these plants are very capable of getting over a pound yield not every single one. Obviously, there are some plants that genetically they're just smaller. That just happens, and it's not shouldn't be a drastic difference. And as we stabilize these genetics more and more, like something like the Jehovah's Witness, which is, we took it to an F4 and then we back crossed it twice to the same pollen. So something like that, you're going to see more consistency. You're not going to see really, a plant that's 3 feet tall and one that's 6 feet tall. Like that's not, or it would happen much more rarely, extremely rarely. So back here, you can see that. Anyway, coming back to the nutrient system here, whether it's designed for people growing in soil, because it's just so much more common to see people growing in soil than it is to see people growing in autopots. Not everybody can afford automatic feeding systems, and just growing in soil or soilless media, cocoa, something like Sunshine Mix, something like Pro Mix. Those are not soils, but they're soilless medias, and they behave the same way in a drain to waste system, which means when you water your plant and you have runoff, it's draining and it's going into a waste receptacle, whether that's a drain like in your house or whether you're collecting it in a bucket, your runoff, whatever, but it's draining to waste. That's what drain to waste means, and that's how most of you are growing. But people who are growing in an automatic feeding system, this works extremely well with consistent drip, constant liquid feed. It's very much designed to do very well with that. So you're going to see really good results with it. We have a few people running this nutrient line in auto pots right now, some of the people who pre-ordered, and we're very excited to see how they're able to do with it, because with our results, this is how we get over a pound. This right here, this is the secret to getting a 1 pound autoflower plant is good nutrition, and this is good nutrition. This is a complete system that provides all of the essential plant nutrients. You're not missing really anything. There's stuff that like we're going to be making available as a separate add-on, which I can probably list them all off. We've got silica, we've got humic, we've got a mycorrhiza, we've got a full add-on kit that absolutely you can do a lot of great stuff with it. But as far as your essential plant nutrients, there was 15 essential plant nutrients, including oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen. This is going to provide all of the ones that you need to grow your plants efficiently and effectively. And then anything else that you want to add is just only going to complement it. So let's talk about how we know that we are giving the plants exactly what they need with this system. How could you possibly know that your plant is not missing anything? How could you possibly know that, maybe a little more nitrogen wouldn't be better for it? And that kind of comes back to the data. Like that's our approach to everything that we do here. It's data driven. So we take a scientific approach to everything that we possibly can. We, as agronomists, which are plant and soil scientists, it's our job to keep everything as scientific as possible. And using the technologies that are available to the ag industry, that the cannabis industry has kind of been really slow to adopt, which has been something that, it's a good thing and a bad thing for us, because we do agronomy consultation, and we are able to introduce these technologies to a lot of farms that didn't know about leaf tissue analysis, didn't know about soil analysis and how the type of soil, and I have we go to a lot of farms that they're getting water tests and they're getting a potability test on their water, where in reality you need an ag suitability test, like how suitable is your water for agriculture. That's what you're really looking at. But a lot of these farms, because they have not adopted the same approaches and the same technologies that the ag industry has, they're not using them, and that's missing out on so much of how you can grow the best possible plants by not using those technologies on a commercial scale. And those technologies are what have fed us all of this data. We love data. Data is one of our favorite things as it relates to growing, and we have generated a ton of it to keep our plants going and to build something like this. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of a demo here to show you guys how this works and why it's special. This is not, obviously, you see a ton of packets here, and you're probably thinking to yourself, I don't want another 8-part nutrient kit. Not interested. I agree, 100%. Nobody wants another 8-part nutrient kit. So make sure the mic's still working there. Yeah. Nobody wants another 8-part nutrient kit. Nobody's interested in that. That's not what this is. So what you're seeing here is we've got 2 full bottles right here. We've got an empty bottle right here we're going to use later. And then these are just 2 that I've got set up for display. This is what comes in the nutrient kit. And you know what? I actually forgot to put the seeds. These belong right there. So, you know, it comes with a pack of the final boss, which is the exclusive strain that comes with our nutrient starter kit, still coming with it, not changing anything about that. It is, you know, the name has changed, the look of it has changed, and that's pretty much it. You know, we kept everything else the same, still compostable packets. The pre-orders that went out, these labels are not yet compostable, but we have packets that are fully compostable coming on the way. So if you, hold on a sec, let me solve question mark here. Never mind. So if you know if you're looking to throw these in your compost bin after you're done with them, for right now you kind of peel the label off. But you know, such is the way of pre-orders and developing the kit and making sure that we get them out to everybody, because we had a lot of delays, which I'll actually talk about why we had some delays. But yeah, so we're happy that they've landed. For most people, we still have a few that are going to be landing soon, and this video here is designed, you know, plus the pre-recorded videos that we're going to post on social media talking about how to use the kit. This is all designed to assist. If you need some help and you're unsure how to use it, you know, if the instructions maybe seem a little confusing to you, or you know it's unusual, we're going to direct people to this video to watch and learn how we're going to chop it up so that really you're only seeing the important parts of it. Yeah. Anyway. I just heard about speedrun seeds from watching Autopotamus. He had granite haze yield 17 ounces. Yeah. Autopotamus just killed it on his last grow, and he's growing 2 more of our strains on his current grow. And I don't know, I'm not going to announce anything that he hasn't announced yet. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I know he's growing 2 more speedrun seeds strains on his next one, and yeah, 17 ounces, amazing yield. I think it's a 3-gallon, maybe 5-gallon auto pot, which is, you know, from a 5-gallon pot to yield over a pound. He really killed it. And, you know, I'm not going to say that the genetics don't play a part. He ran the exact same system with 3 other plants in the tent, and I know that the granite haze was significantly higher yield. So it's genetics are a huge part of it, but that perfect environment, the very good feeding techniques that Autopotamus uses, I respect the hell out of him. He does an excellent job feeding his plants. I would go so far as to say there is nobody better in the world at growing autoflowers in a tent, growing, let's say, you know, 4 autoflowers with auto pots than Autopotamus. I would say he is probably I don't know of anybody else who's better than growing auto flowers in a tent than Autopotamus. I don't know if he puts his first name out there, so I'm just gonna call him Autopotamus. But yeah, so he was, I'd say, the best in the world. So I always love seeing you guys bring him up, because he absolutely kills it. Not even just with our strains, with every plant that he grows, he really kills it. So anyway, let's get to the demo here. So full bottles, display bottles, empty bottle, and demo packet. This is a 3A packet, and it has, you know, the 3A nutrients in there. So I'm gonna show you guys how to use it and what you're looking at and why it's set up the way it is. So this is laid out with 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, 4A, 4B. There's 8 packets, and it is designed, you know, so the phase 1 is early flower, early veg. Phase 2 is late veg. Phase 3 is early flower. Phase 4 is late flower. That's how it's set up. And you're looking at, depending on, you know, how the plant behaves, it's very difficult to give you guys an exact number of days. So like you should use the 1A for 19 days, depending on how the plant's behaving. Some plants are going to mature a little bit faster than others. Some plants are going to be a little slower. Kind of keep an eyeball on it and choose, but it's about 20 days per phase. That's it hovers right around that. So if you're talking about an 80-day yield, 80-day harvest times, a seed to harvest time, you've got about 20 days of nutrients for each phase, and that's how it's set up, and that's the amounts that are in there are set up for that also. So these bottles are what comes with the kit. That when they arrive, that they're empty, there's no nutrients in them. And the reason that we do that is because what we are delivering to you guys is a liquid nutrient system. This is a liquid nutrient through and through. The only difference is, at the production facilities, let's just pick a name, FOOP, or that's an organic one. Let's pick how about Athena? Athena has their Athena blended nutrients, good nutrient system. It's not necessarily set up for autoflowers, but good nutrient system. And the way that they make it is, instead of shipping you guys, the salt products, the salt components, they just blend it with water. They blend it with water, put it in a bottle, and ship you something that's like 90% water. That's what a liquid nutrient is. So we are getting around that by shipping you guys some empty bottles, all of the components that would go into a liquid nutrient, and you just pour it into the bottle, you fill it up to 32 ounces, and now you have a liquid nutrient that we've designed specifically for autoflowers that you can feed your plants at the recommended rates, which I'll talk about in a second here too, and get the same results that we get here. Like it's designed for you guys to be able to replicate the same results that we get, those 1 pound yields that we're able to get on the larger pots, and the consistent 12 ounce, 14 ounce yields that we're able to get from. And I can pull some of these larger plants to kind of show you what I'm talking about here, but yeah, those consistent high yields are in large part due to this, and that's using it as directed is exactly how you guys can replicate that. So this is a 3A packet, and I've got an empty bottle here. Let's talk about how to use this. You know what? I should have brought some extra water. It's okay. All good. Okay, I've got a jug of tap water here. This is straight out of the sink. We did not let this sit overnight. Letting it sit overnight does not do anything for you. That's probably another controversial statement there, but I'll talk about why. What you're doing when you let your tap water sit out overnight to get the chlorine out of it is what a lot of people might tell you if you're kind of just starting, or if you're wondering about why that is that people have their water sit out. Water like this has gaseous chlorine suspended in the water. There's gaseous chlorine and chloramines in this water. So when you let it sit out overnight still, or you aerate it, especially overnight, and you can purge that gaseous chlorine that comes in it, from the facility that delivers your water. You're not removing the dissolved chlorine that's in the water. And let's talk about chlorine for a second. There are a bunch of essential nutrients for plants, and hey, one of them is chlorine. Plants need chlorine. Your tap water, and somebody may correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the ppm requirement for tap water in most districts, most states, most areas, I believe is the highest limit is 4 parts per million. 4 parts per million of chlorine in your tap water. And in order to damage your plant, you would have to have over 50 parts, you'd have to over 10 times to significantly damage your plant. Starting at like 20 parts per million, you're gonna have measurable damage. That could be, you could chart it out, and maybe you're losing 1% or 2% of your yield at the end. Some questions here. Okay, no, still talking to each other. Hey, if you guys have a question, how about this? If you have a question, put like a bunch of emojis there, like line up 6 emojis if you have a question, because I can see, like if I lean forward and really focus, I can read the the comments, I guess I could probably start doing that. But yeah, if you have a question that you want me to answer, just drop like 6 emojis in the chat before you ask it, so that I can, see that there's something that requires my attention. Otherwise, if you guys are just talking to each other, you know, go ahead and talk to each other. Okay, so the way that this works, let me reorganize some stuff here. I'm going to put these bottles over here, put this one front and center. So you tear open your packets. I like to try to kind of tear open just a corner here. If I don't have a funnel, that just tearing open that little corner is how, it just makes it easier to fill. I do have a funnel here. Most people have a funnel in their kitchens, and I think we're going to start shipping these kits with funnels. But yeah, so line your funnel up. Take your nutrient, pour it in the bottle. If you can make Kool-Aid, you can use this nutrient line. Okay, I see a bunch of those. Can I use a big 100/200 plus reservoir? So what you're talking about is commercial amounts, and we are, we will be releasing this in commercial form like we have here, but let me explain why it's different. The way that this is set up, so that was 3A, right? Yeah, that was 3A. There's a 3B, and there's a A and a B for every phase. So what I just did there was my A component for early flower. If we were to sell this as a nutrient line that isn't set up like that, we would be selling an 8-part nutrient line. This is, 7-part, because 2 of the packets have the same ingredients, but the amounts in there is different. I think it's 1A and 2A. It's the same calcium nitrate, but we're just increasing it as we move into later veg. Anyway, so we would be giving a 7-part nutrient line is what we would be selling commercially. And we set this up so that you're not using a 7-part nutrient line, you're using a 2-part nutrient line. So we're still working on how we're going to release the commercial, but we do have it, and we're actually kind of moving into packaging of it. Just haven't gotten the labels on there yet, and haven't really fully decided how we're going to market it. But yeah, okay, you've got your dry. Trying to decide how I'll use the funnel. Oh, no, that's not going to work. You got your dry nutrients in there. I am going to carefully, usually you would just use a sink, guys. And if you want to use hot water from the sink or warm water from the sink, your nutrients are going to dissolve faster. So I am pouring water into this vessel up to the 32-ounce line. And that's going to take a little longer than it would with the sink with this bottle, but I don't want to spill, so I'm going to do this carefully. The part A packets, all right, so it looks like I'm about at 32 ounces, I would say. I think maybe it went a little, no, perfect. Okay, cool. So you want to put the container down flat just to make sure that, you're right in line with 32 ounces. So you can see it's already started to dissolve. Obviously, it's changed the color of the water here, but shake it. It can take about 30 seconds sometimes. So what I was saying before is the part A, which is always going to be like kind of this color. It has some magnesium sulfate, also known as Epsom salt, in there, and that might dissolve a little bit slower than everything else. Ooh, geez, tighten that cap. So you just kind of shake it. Look at the bottom. I still have some Epsom salt in there. It's probably shaking for about 30 seconds in general. Is about how long it takes to dissolve it. So, and like I said, if I had put warm water in there, you would end up with a faster. Wait, I think I see another question. I was curious about the stability of this nutrient and the pH drift. Yeah, so we've set this up. Anything with the calcium nitrate, and there's a calcium chelate, which I'll be talking about soon. It can have the potential to increase pH. It can behave a little bit like calcium carbonate. But aside from that, which it's pretty minimal in the way that you're going to be using this, you're not going to see a ton of pH drift that is attributed to the nutrient. You might see pH drift for a number of reasons in your reservoir, but it's really not going to be attributed to the nutrient. And we've done a lot of research to ensure that is that's the case. So, okay. I've got like one little magnesium sulfate crystal in there that's stubborn, but forget it. If you let it sit for 5 minutes, or if you just continue shaking it, it will dissolve. So, and also, yeah, like no, we're good now. Nothing left at the bottom. If I could set the lights up, I could show you guys. We are fully dissolved. There is no solids in there. So now we move on to the application. So this right here is a 1 gallon vessel. And what we're going to want to do is, there's a little trick with these, by the way. If you are looking, so I want to get that water out of that smaller chamber there. And there's a number of ways you can do it, but if it'll let you pour it that way, or you can loosen this cap here. Let me come closer to the cap. There's little tricks on how to use these bottles. So you can loosen this cap here, squeeze the air out of it, tighten it back up, and then now it's going to naturally want to pull the, to balance out that air bubble, and you can sort of get the. I'm going to do it right that time. I might just pour that out, but you want to clear out what was in there, because it might not have mixed as precisely as what mixed in the lower chamber, and there is a way. Maybe I'm not doing it right, but there's a way to get it to feed back in there. Regardless, anyway, so the way that you're going to measure out your dose, which every single time with all the parts, always 60 milliliters per gallon. I'm going to make sure that I say that one nice and loud into the microphone. It is always 60 milliliters per gallon. Now, that's designed for a system, environmentals that are conducive to good plant growth, which means your temperature is good, your humidity is good. That is allowing your plant to transpire. It's allowing your plant to breathe, essentially. So we respire. We breathe in and out. We breathe out carbon dioxide. We breathe in oxygen. Plants are the opposite. They breathe out oxygen. They breathe in carbon dioxide. We're supplementing carbon dioxide here. You probably are not at home, so there's also a different nutrient behavior that you need to take into account. So I'm going to actually switch to the ones that we've prepared here. It's like a cooking show. I like it. So you've got your A and your B now. Actually, this is 3A and 3B in these bottles. So, which is one of the heavier application, larger amounts of nutrient that we give the plants. So I'm going to pour this into here. So just for full visual, just going to let that go. So this is a 1 gallon container, and I just picked something that was nice and clear so you guys can see what you want to do. And I just did that entirely wrong. So what you're going to want to do, fill it up halfway, add your A, then fill it up the rest of the way, add your B. And what you're trying to make sure is that your final volume is 1 gallon. So 60 milliliters of each of these, that's 2 ounces of the A, 2 ounces of the A, 2 ounces of the B. That means that you're adding 4 ounces total. A gallon has 128 ounces. So you're going to want to add that to 124 ounces of water. That's how you make sure that you have a final volume. That's what that means. A final volume of 1 gallon. You're accounting for the volume of the nutrients, which is high, and we're going to talk about that also. So let's go here. So we've got our part A, even though I'm doing this wrong, because I didn't fill it up halfway. And then, and that's, you always want to do that with nutrients, because there's certain things that calcium doesn't always play well with. So I just squeeze the bottle, and I'll come around to the camera and do the second one for you guys. I just loosened this cap a little bit to make sure the air can come out. Squeeze the bottle till it got to 1 ounce, 30 milliliters. And I'm going to go ahead and pour that in. So now I'm going to take this one again, and you're just going to squeeze the bottle. Wait till you see it get to the 30 milliliter line, and then you're going to We got the 30 milliliter line. Sometimes you might have to put it down, and yeah, a little bit more. Okay, so you're gonna pour that in, and that's your A. Okay, and now you always want to, in that order, you always want to add A and then B. Okay, so wrong cap. You loosen this cap or take it off. Squeeze the bottle. Get yourself. It says 1 ounce on one side. It says 30 milliliters on the other. It's the same thing. So whatever line you want to choose to get to. So you add your A, then you add your B to your 1 gallon of water. Okay, that simple. Squeeze it twice, dump it twice. Here is your fertilized water. This is your nutrient solution. This is what you're going to feed your plants. This is the diluted. This is set up to be perfect for the early flower phase. Like this is exactly what your plant needs for that. It's that simple, and you're going to do that every single time. Every single time you're going to squeeze twice, dump twice for both parts, and 60 milliliters for each goes into your 1 gallon of water. So if it's 5 gallons, you're going to add 2 ounces of each per gallon. So it's 5. That's going to be 10 ounces of each one, and it's a lot. So the reason that we have a high application rate. So this is a liquid nutrient, yes. The amount of liquid nutrient that we have here is designed to last you the amount of time that we want to feed the plant. Like, so we want to give the plant these part per million inputs, which we're going to be putting up on the website, which is how many parts per million of nitrogen, how many parts per million of phosphorus, how many parts per million of potassium, and all the micronutrients, how much iron, how much zinc, how much copper, how much copper you want to feed the plant. So it all changes throughout the growth cycle. And something that's interesting that you guys might notice, some of the growers out there that are a little bit more, have a little bit more attention to detail, you might notice that the micronutrients on the guaranteed analysis, which is, let me grab one that's going to be easy to grab here. Let me bring this up to the camera. So this is the guaranteed analysis right here. This tells you the percent of all the micronutrients in there and the macronutrients. So macronutrients at the top, micronutrients at the bottom. So that's required to be on all fertilizer packages. And that guaranteed analysis, you'll notice the micronutrients might look really similar percent-wise from, let's say, 3A to 4A. The reason for that is when you only put a certain number of digits on the guaranteed analysis. So here we've got 2 digits after the decimal. So that means that it could be 0.08 or it could be 0.12. Those are both going to get rounded to 0.1. So and that's a decent sized difference, part per million wise, and that's the percent that we're talking about there, percent by weight. So that is important to kind of understand that just because it might look like the micronutrient amount is the same from one to the next, because you have to round up or round down, you end up coming to 0.1, even if it's 0.8 versus 1.2. Let me take a look at what this question is here. When will the speedrun seeds grow help page be live, and what will be on that page? Yeah, okay. So that's going live this weekend. We have a bunch of things that are happening to the website. That one will probably be live before the weekend. That one's pretty much ready to go, which needs to be published on the website. So Grow Help page is going to have a ton of frequently asked questions. Why is everything? Oh, it's the fan. Yeah, sorry. I turned off most of the fans in the room here. turned off most of the fans in the room here because they're super loud. So it's pretty hot. So I left one fan blowing on me, and it's been, yeah, it just blew down that bottle. So anyway, the Grow Help page, a ton of frequently asked questions. It will have information on the nutrient line, how to use it. This video, we're going to chop up this video a little bit, and we also are recording another video that's not live. That's going to be on there. Let's see. How are these nutrients geared more toward autoflowers? I love that question. I'll definitely happily answer that as post a photo. What about foliar feeding? Okay, cool. 2 questions. Very good question. Excellent questions, I would say. How is this different than a photoperiod nutrient line? Autoflowers require 2 main macronutrient differences from photoperiods, and then there is some micronutrient differences that some of it is proprietary to what we do. We have a little bit of a formula that we have found to produce insane results as far as THC development, terpene development. Those 2 things heavily dependent on how you balance your micronutrients, and a lot of nutrient lines miss the mark to a major extent. So that's is our micronutrients are blended to, for precise timing. So autoflowers don't have a flip to flower. Just like kind of outdoor photo periods, you have a little bit of there's not a particular day that you can point to on the calendar outdoors that you can say, my photo periods have started flowering on this day. They get pre-flowers, then they get internodal spacing starts to tighten up, and the morphology of the plant changes a little bit. You get a growth spurt, you get your flowering stretch. Autoflowers behave a little bit differently to that. Autoflowers have a vegetative growth, a rapid vegetative growth phase. So that's something that photoperiods don't have. And the rapid vegetative growth phase requires a heavy input of nitrogen, calcium, potassium. Now, I left out phosphorus for a reason. I'll talk about that. So there are really 6 micronutrients. People say six macronutrients. People say NPK. That's what you see on the front of the package. People say NPK, micronutrient. I keep saying macronutrients all the time. But really, there are 6 nutrients that are provided in macro amounts, and that's nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. Sulfur is like the forgotten nutrient, and the reason for that is most nutrients have magnesium sulfate. They have sulfate salts like a ferrous sulfate or whatever for their micronutrients. So you're getting the sulfur that you need because it's getting carried along on other things that you're adding. So it's not, usually you don't have, sometimes nutrient lines don't have, So sometimes nutrient lines do not have magnesium sulfate. If there's other magnesium, there's magnesium citrate, I believe, more rare, but some use it. And if you're not delivering sulfur with other nutrients, or you're not providing enough of those nutrients to deliver the right amount of sulfur, you could end up with a sulfur deficiency. It's very difficult to have sulfur toxicity. I've seen 400 parts per million, 500, 600 part per million of sulfur with no detriment to the plant. It takes it just fine until you start to get into salinity levels that are going to harm the plant. But the sulfur itself is not the issue. So just a little thing about sulfur there. But those are the 6 macronutrients. And autoflowers specifically, very rapid root growth, very rapid vegetative growth, and a slow transition into flower, and extended we call it vegetative behavior farther into flower. Those are like the main differences that autoflowers have to photoperiods. And the way that we compensate, the way that we feed the plant specifically for that is the heavy vegetative growth, or the rapid vegetative growth phase. That occurs during 2B. I don't know why I just said that. late veg. That would be the phase 3. So that rapid vegetative growth phase, no, late veg. I've had a long day. Late veg to phase 2, 2A and 2B is your rapid vegetative growth phase. And what that means is your plant requires much heavier input than a lot of nutrient lines provide. A lot of nutrient lines are afraid to provide or give you a feeding schedule that has you giving your plants, upwards of 200 parts per million of nitrogen, or upwards of 200 parts per million of phosphorus. Potassium, and then the calcium. So many nutrient lines are calcium deficient. Every single time we go to a new client, a new farm, I think it's every single time, 90% of the time, when we go to a new farm, a new client with Agrarian Advantage or agronomic services company, and we take leaf tissue samples from their farm, we always do a free leaf tissue analysis for a new client. When we take our first leaf tissue samples, we send them to the lab, we will find a calcium deficiency. It is just so common that nutrient lines, feeding schedules do not provide the calcium that these plants need, specifically autoflowers, because of that rapid growth. Calcium supports that rapid growth. Nitrogen supports that rapid growth. Potassium supports that rapid root growth and the rapid vegetative growth. So those 3 components in the macronutrients, very important for autoflowers to get those right. The right amounts, the right duration of that application, and having it go as far into flower, and then at the end, people overload. So a lot of nutrient lines overload on phosphorus. Phosphorus, I'll happily post some research that's been done in Canada, and they're starting to do it here as well. Canada is federally legal, so they're able to do government-funded research there. Here, I'll move this to the front here. That's the good stuff. So Canada can do government-funded research, or their universities can do research, and they have done research on the impact of phosphorus application, heavy phosphorus application, on inflorescence yield. Inflorescence is your flowers that grow on the plants. And that's what they call inflorescence. So increased phosphorus does not contribute to increased inflorescence yield past a certain point. The ideal amount of phosphorus for a plant in soilless media soil, in a constant feed system, we have our part per million set between I think it's 65 and 105. I want to say it's hard to remember every single number, but in that range, and that's even a little bit more than the plant needs. Honestly, it's not detrimental. It doesn't do anything negative to give the plant a little bit more phosphorus than it needs. Sorry, it's hot in here because all the fans are off. But giving a plant way more than it needs, I have seen there are certain nutrient lines. There's one nutrient line that I've got some friends that work there, and I don't want to call them out right now, but screw it. Advanced nutrients, some of their nutrient lines, the commercial ones, I think I calculated it out. At the feeding schedule they were recommending, it was like 400 parts per million of phosphorus. And I was just like, my mind was blown. Don't quote me on that. I'd have to go back and look. But it was insane. I remember it being an insane, I think it was 400 parts per million of potassium and close to that, 300. It was really high. It was almost 500 on potassium. Very high phosphorus, very high potassium. That amount of phosphorus can start to be detrimental. That can start to prevent the plant from being able to take up other nutrients. And if you guys happen to have ordered any seeds and gotten one of our molders, called a molder's chart, where it's a circle with the lines that point, across the circle to the different nutrients, and it tells you which nutrients inhibit other nutrients. So there's a full chart, or there's also lists, so you can tell, like, hey, if I put in too much calcium, it's gonna block the uptake of nitrogen, and if you put in too much nitrogen, you're going to block the uptake of a bunch of different things. I think phosphorus, potassium, there's a whole list of them. Boron. So any of those nutrients supplied in toxic amounts, you're going to have a toxicity, and you might have a hidden toxicity where you're not seeing the plants exhibit signs of a nutrient toxicity, but the plant is now growing slower, or it's not taking up another nutrient the way it should be, and you've lost yield, especially on an autoflower where you can't recover it, you can't extend your veg period a little bit longer to recover the plant. It is what it is. You're losing yield every time you don't feed them in an ideal way. So super high phosphorus is another thing that we see very commonly on nutrient lines just across the board. There's some that get it right. There's some that provide the right amount, which is, sub 100 part per million amounts of phosphorus, but most of them don't. So that's another thing where, that's not as specific to autoflowers. That's kind of just specific to nutrient lines in general, but that is, it's an important thing to keep in mind. So like those, hopefully I answered your question, sufficiently there. But there's a bunch of different, and maybe on a different live stream, because we're already past an hour right now. Maybe on a different live stream, I will get into our specific micronutrient input target. So like we have a certain number of parts per million of every micronutrient that we want to add. Some of them it's a fraction of a part per million, but yeah, like we want to make sure that we're providing the right amount of those, and it's very specific to this, and it's very specific to autoflowers. That's another thing that. All right, got another question here. What about flushing the plant? What would be the procedure? Do you have a sweetener? Also, do you guys carry a pH up or down solution? Which do you recommend? Oh, and foliar spray. We talked about foliar spray. You start feed after week 1 or when there is no ramp up from beginning to flower, or how do you know when to switch with this? What do you mean there's no ramp up? Explain what you mean there. So I'll cover. You have a bunch of questions there. So I'll go back and do foliar sprays because I just didn't get to that one. I forgot to answer that one. We have, so in that in those add-on options. So moving forward, obviously the product is going to change on the website. It's no longer the Speedrun Seeds Autoflower Nutrient Starter Kit. It's full auto, and we're going to have options to add. So let's say you're growing 4 plants in 7-gallon pots. We have it set up to be the right amount of nutrients for 5-gallon pots. So adding an extra packet or two, or extra, even a full line of packets, you're not like doubling the cost of it. It's much less just to get the packets than it is to get the full kit. So when you order the kit, you can get an extra set of packets if you're concerned about not having enough. Like that's one thing. And then we're going to have a bunch of other add-ons that are optional and that you can add on to use with your essential nutrients here. That includes foliar sprays. So we have one that we're actually finishing up our testing of the foliar sprays here. You can probably see it on our leaves. Let me show you here. Grab a couple leaves to make it clear. So we did a pretty heavy application of it. That is not powdery mildew. That is little droplets that have dried. So we have a foliar spray. The foliar spray is an amino acid nitrogen product, very available. It passes into the leaf tissue through the stomata and through the cells amazingly. Like we have seen such a boost in just the plant's overall perkiness, the growth, the colors, everything about the plant is happier and healthier when we apply our foliar spray. And it's a nitrogen product, and we also do a calcium foliar spray. So those two together are like a little extra boost for the plant. And we recommend that probably once a week. With our nutrients, like the plant should be taking up everything that they need to be taking up through the root base, but that's not always the case. Sometimes something happens. Sometimes the plant's just not, maybe you've got a little issue going on with your environmentals, or or you've got some whatever, some problems with your root zone, you're not going to be taking up all the nutrients. Some of it's just not going to be taken up. And adding a foliar spray is a good way to supplement for that. So 100%, we recommend foliar sprays. It's a product that's going to be coming out from us in the very near future. And then we will also have a silica that's not a foliar. We will have the amino acid is the foliar. We have a humic acid it's paired with fulvic acid and a couple other things. We have a carbohydrate product, and we have a microorganism product. So that microorganism product is your mycorrhiza, some beneficial bacteria together. That's another one that we have that we'll be able to add on. All of these are weird noises in this place, man. I swear it's haunted. I just lost my train of thought because of the ghost. But yeah, so all of these are formulated by us. Like we are testing them, and we do extensive testing. And I think so. The reason I want to pick up my computer is because the way it's plugged in, the microphone sometimes comes a little bit loose, and you can't. It stops working. But at the end here, I will pick up the computer, and I'll show you guys the room here. There are a lot of plants packed in here, and like I put one on the table earlier that was kind of relatively small, but like I was gonna grab a good one that shows you like the average size. And something that we do that's interesting that you guys might find interesting. So yeah, this is a plant at day 41, and what you might notice is there's pretty. Let me bring it a little closer. So you might say that there's an unusual amount of distance between the nodes here. You would say that that's real internodal spacing. There's a couple reasons for that, and I want to talk about that. Okay, so autoflowers in general, we have been breeding them to increase internodal spacing. When we did our first 30,000 plant pheno hunt, we found that a lot autoflower strains have football buds, what we call football buds. I've got a lot of pictures of me holding buds that are the size of a Nerf ball. Not a lot of frost on them, and in a commercial facility, it's very likely with buds that size that you'll end up with botrytis. You'll end up with bud rot. Autoflowers are notorious for that. So what we did to breed away from that is we selected plants that had larger internodal spacing, longer internodal spacing to get better bud structure. The buds are no longer packed in, they look more like photoperiods. They behave much more like photoperiods. And then we also reduce our PPFD. Our light intensity in here is actually lower than we would recommend for the highest possible yield. But we're growing seeds here. So for us, there's a balance between keeping our when I pick up the computer and I show you this how packed tight this room is, we need airflow. And if the plants are super dense and the air can't pass through them, we will end up with mold problems. Like we can spray all the fungicide we want, but if there's no airflow and we have a humid environment at any point, it's just asking for powdery mildew. It's asking for botrytis. And one of the best ways to fight that is to purposefully increase your internodal spacing, which is something that we do here. You might have noticed that the last time I did a little grow room tour, and you'll notice that today when I take you around. Not every single, so some of these plants have tighter internodal spacing, but not every one of these plants is going to get bred with. We've done probably, I think, we've done 3 rounds of killing to get here. So we started with a few thousand plants, or maybe I think it was like 12, not a few, 1,200 or 1,300 plants, a little more, to get to this. We killed, that would be 70% of them or so to get to what we have in this room. What we have in this room is going to be thinned out more times. We're going to kill more plants in this room. Beautiful plants, plants that would yield well, plants that would do really well. But we are a commercial facility. We can't just take them home. And unfortunately, they have to die. These days, we can put them outside. We have, a lot of plants out. There's a certain amount that we can take care of. There's a certain amount that we have the staff to take care of, because kind of throwing a pot like this outside, it doesn't make sense to set up an automatic irrigation system on it. So we end up hand watering them. And we got a lot of them kind of just living out there at this point, because it's, it's the right season for it. So at this point, we're probably just going to kill a lot of these. It's unfortunate. We hate doing it, but it gets us to the best of the best. We end up with the best of the best. We breed with the best of the best. We breed with plants that are either have the traits that we're looking to combine, or that are so morphologically similar to each other, that are so physically similar to each other, that we know we're stabilizing that that particular phenotype, just because, like we select. Let me see if I can find one that has a tape branch. Never mind. Some of the plants in here, you'll see, like if you were to look closely, some of the branches have a piece of yellow tape on them. And that's because we're spraying those branches with silver thiosulfate. And we choose lower branches, we spray it with the silver thiosulfate, and then we have a process to get the pollen in enough time to pollinate the same plant if we want to, or pollinate the rest of the plants. And that it's also, it allows the plant to finish flowering out. So we can get a really good idea of the phenotype of the plant because it's finishing, where it's flowering, and maybe it gets pollinated and we get seeds from it, and that would be an S1, but or we pollinate it with something else. But the plant finishes out, we get to see the phenotype of it. We record that. We have a tablet here where there are pictures of the plant with the phenotype, and then the pollen number. It's an alphanumeric code. So we'll have, let's say Jehovah's Witness will have Jehovah's Witness 0, 1, the first pollen or first phenotype, or phenotype 12, whatever. There's not 12 phenotypes Jehovah's Witness, but like, it's alpha. So, JW03, and that's how we know what pollen it is, and that's attached to those pictures. We can go back and look and say, okay, this one had really great frost and really great color. Now we want to combine JW03 with this one here, which, JW03 was a little bit on the small side. It was a great phenotype. We want to breed with it, but just didn't have the same vigor as JW02. So we want to combine JW02 with JW03. So we pull the pollen, because we have pollen from all of the phenotypes. We pull the pollen from JW03. We start another seed of JW, or we start another round and we find another JW02 phenotype, and we pollinate that plant with the JW03 pollen. And that's how we end up getting the traits that we want and stabilizing the traits that we want, while still seeing how the plants finish out. And we only, so like we'll make a batch from a plant, because we're able to get large plants with the nutrient line that we have in the system that we have. We can produce enough seeds from one plant to create its own little batch. And when we sell seeds of a strain, we'll go from that batch and then we'll move on to the next most similar one. And that's how we have plants where people, put them in their tents and they end up looking the same, whether they're growing in cocoa or soil, or they're growing in under a LED light or whatever, fluorescent, whatever it is. The plants look extremely similar to each other, no matter what the environment is, because we've done a good job stabilizing them. And that's the story there. That's what makes speedrun seeds different from other breeders. And I tell you, I have been to other breeders' facilities. I'm not going to name names. I had one breeder in particular that I really I still look up to. And I went to the facility and I found out that, they just take one plant, decide that, hey, this is going to be the male. They spray the whole plant with silver thiosulfate. They put it in an enclosure with a bunch of females. They pollinate with that one plant, all those females, and then they collect all the seeds and mix them together. And that's their strain. And for us, it is such a more intensive process to keep everything separate, to let everything finish out, to record every phenotype. We put so much more care into that. And just seeing, and he's a very big name breeder, and seeing how they did that, I was like, oh, wow, like that, you guys don't care how stabilized your genetics are, I guess. Like that, yeah. And it kind of, I don't know, that was really early in my breeding career that happened. It was actually an ag services client. 5. Cool. Okay. Yeah. I'll answer this one, and then we're gonna wrap it up soon because we're already at hour 20 minutes. I figured I would do like an extra long live stream here for you guys, for answer all the questions about the nutrient line. Did a little demo for you. This I will pour on one of our plants because they are ready for early flower nutrients. That's why I chose that one. And this is the gold. This is the liquid gold. That's why it's that color. Liquid gold. That's your 1 pound yield right there. Okay, difference between F2 and F5. Filial generations. So I'm gonna start from the beginning. And I wish I had a whiteboard behind me. I'll have to set this up next time where I can move you guys around because we got a big whiteboard over there. And anyway, so you've got, let's just say you're making an F1 cross. So you've got 2 different strains. Let's say you took Holy Fire and Jehovah's Witness. You reverse the Jehovah's Witness or reverse some branches on it, pollinate the Holy Fire. So now you've got Jehovah's Witness is the dad, trans dad essentially, and then you've got your Holy Fire, which is the pollen recipient and the seed-bearing plant. That's the phrasing that we use. So the seed-bearing plant will produce your F1 cross seeds. That is going to be a good blend of your, if your plants, if the 2 strains are similarly stabilized, you will get a very good even blend of both strains, and it'll have traits from both, and it'll be a nice blend of both. If one of your plants that you use for the cross is, let's say, an F8, and it's very stabilized, or let's say a BX4, very stabilized strain, and you cross it with an F2, which is your least stable generation, I'll talk about why, that F4 is going to, the BX4 is going to dominate. You will see mostly traits from the more stable parent. So the more stable your parent is, the more the traits are going to come through in that F1 cross. Okay, so that's F1. You could either end up with a really nice stable blend of both, or you're going to end up with like a dominant, or you could end up with some weird genetics popping out if your parents are not stabilized well. F1. F2 is when all of your recessive traits start to come out. So that's taking the seeds that came from that Holy Fire, those F1 seeds, you're crossing an F1 now, doing the same thing, reversing one of your F1. So let's call it Jehovah's Fire. You're taking, Holy Witness. You're taking your Holy Witness plant A and your Holy Witness plant B. Hopefully you would choose 2 plants that are morphologically very similar to each other, that look very similar. You would cross your plant A with your plant B, pollinate your plant B. Now you've got your F2 seeds. And because you're crossing 2 seeds that came from the same parents, that means now the dominant traits, you're plugging it. So if you guys remember Punnett squares from high school, if you had biology, you probably did something on genetics and Punnett squares. If you remember that, if you want to Google Punnett squares, it kind of gives you an idea of dominant traits and recessive traits, and when your recessive traits start to pop up. And F2 is the generation that most of your recessive traits start to pop up, which can either be a good thing or a bad thing. If your parents have some issues, let's say your parents have, maybe there's some Hermes in its history. Maybe one of its grandparents, hermed out, and that recessive genetic trait is kind of waiting right under the surface. Or let's say it was recently crossed with a photoperiod and it hasn't been fully stabilized, and it might exhibit some photoperiod traits. All of those are recessive traits that could end up coming out in F2. Now, if your plants are well stabilized, if you've done a good job of working out all of the negative traits that you're trying to keep away, and your plants are relatively evenly matched as far as stabilization, F2 is going to be more of just like a rainbow of, there's going to be mostly one phenotype, or maybe let's say like 30-40% one phenotype, and then 20% another, and then 10%, and smaller and smaller percents of different phenotypes. And that's when you really get to do the work. That's when you get to really find, the 2 plants that I crossed to make my F2, they were a really good blend of the parents. Now I've got to do the work. I've got to pheno hunt. That's when pheno hunting really kicks in, is in F2. and you're finding the next two that have the traits that you want. And you find those two, you cross them together and make your F3. F3 is where I would say is the start of stabilization. That's where you're going from all of those recessive traits popping up to less recessive traits popping up. F4 is the beginning of your stability road. Like, so F3 is like the transition from recessive traits, a ton of variation, to stability, and F3 kind of sits in the middle between those two. F4 is where your stability starts. F5 is where you're really refining it. You're going to end up with, like a much larger percent of the same phenotype. Let's say maybe like 80%, 90%, even if you did a really good job in the previous generations. So F5 is a really nice generation to say, we have some nice stable genetics. F6 is when you're really, now you're just like, if I were to pheno hunt 100 plants going from F5 to F6, really difficult for me to pick out plants to kill because they're all so similar. So like, that's when that starts to happen. And sorry, hold on. All right, sorry. That's when that starts to happen. Like right now, this room, it looks so similar. It's crazy. All of these plants look like clones. They like, looking behind me right now, it looks like clones. So it's hard for us. That's why it's so packed full right now. We have to wait a little longer to get the terpenes, to see the frost. Like, we have to wait a little longer to start killing more. So, and the bigger they get, the harder that is to manage in here. But it's because the stability is going well. So yeah, so F5, and then there's the back crosses. So let's say you took a F4, and there's a phenotype in the F2 generation that is the same phenotype that you're trying to stabilize in F4. You take that phenotype or the closest thing to it in F4, you cross it back to that pollen from F2 that has the phenotype that you're looking for, back cross. And then let's say you take those seeds, back cross it again to the same pollen. That's how we made Jehovah's Witness. So yeah, really cool about the node spacing. Wait, what's like a golden retriever? Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you guys for sticking with me. Geez, I still got a nice little 12 people here, and it's in an hour and a half. We totally moved away from the nutrient line at the end here, but I'm always happy to answer some questions at the end of these lives. And sorry, we did miss like a week or two. I don't know. Yeah, it was supposed to be Sunday, so like we would have missed 2 weeks if I hadn't done this one. But there's been just a lot going on with the launch and with the grow season. We have had a harvest recently. It has been crazy. I've been doing a lot of traveling for the ag services. So you have to forgive me if I haven't been as present on the social medias, but things are starting to wind down toward me having a little bit more time to service all that. And now that we're launching the nutrient line, I'm going to be a lot more present on social media, talking to people about it, answering questions. You're going to see me a lot more. You're going to get tired of seeing me, in fact. So thanks for sticking with me here. I think we are going to go ahead and wrap it up. Any last burning questions about the nutrient line? I am happy to answer. But you saw my little demo. So I poured this packet into this bottle, which now has nothing at the bottom, zero, zilch, all dissolves, okay? Shake it, dissolve it faster. Hot water dissolves it faster. And then if you want to, like, you're trying to get it to fill up this little chamber here, I'll show you guys this because maybe we can clip this out for people who are having trouble. What is earwig on my leg? Get off me. Sorry, I hate those. There's just they come into the facility this time of year. So if you try to squeeze the bottle right now, you're not going to be able to fill that chamber. You have to loosen this to let the air out. And now I can easily fill that chamber up to an ounce. Overdid it a little bit, but yeah, it's important to know that. And then when you're pouring it out, sometimes this tube can be a little bit full of nutrients. So just try to pour it out front ways like that. And we're going to have more demos. That's why this is all set up like this, because we are filming some other video, to give people an indication of how to use these best, how to get the best results, how to not spill the nutrients, and how to pour it out right so that you're not, ending up pouring all the liquid that's in this tube here. You want to kind of keep that from getting into, it's more. You don't want, it's precise. You want that 60 milliliters. Oh, and I said I would talk about this, so I will add this on here so that we can come back and maybe, Dustin maybe even could pull some clips from this. I'm going to talk about the application rate. Application rate is high, 60 milliliters per part per feeding. Now, the reason that it's high is because we've designed this for you guys to have enough nutrient to get you through that phase. And we wanted it high because we easily could have made this more concentrated, no problem. But we wanted it high so that people who are feeding their plants, and let's say their environmentals are not the best, it might be a little bit much. It might be a little bit heavy nutrient for those people. They might have to reduce it a little bit. And we wanted to make it easy to reduce. So it is very easy to go from 60 milliliters, let's say, to 45 milliliters with something like, just as an example, as a liquid, this is the first one that comes to mind, a liquid nutrient line like Athena. Athena has an application rate, I think, of 8 milliliters per gallon. In reality, with those parts A and B, with their A and B and their other parts base, I think, you really want to be adding like, I think 12 or 13 milliliters per gallon of their stuff. But reducing it from 13 to 11 milliliters per gallon to get that perfect part per million input, almost impossible if you don't have a tiny graduated cylinder. Like, you could use one of those droppers, but you don't want to have to, it just involves so much to try to reduce something by a couple milliliters for most home growers. That's why we have this nutrient line, set up so that we can, hey, why not make it a high application rate so that it's harder to mess up? You can't accidentally add too much. You can't accidentally add, a whole lot too little. Like, if you fill it up to 30 and it's a little bit over, it's okay. If you fill it up to 30 and it's a little bit under, it's okay. And if that amount that comes from the tube, if that pours in there, it's really not that big of a deal. The application rate is high enough so that those little differences are not something you're going to notice a major issue with. A few more parts per million of this, a few more parts per million of that. It's within the range of being optimal still. So that is why we have a high application rate. And it's important also, for home growers, oftentimes we'll find that home growers are a little bit afraid of salt nutrients. And this is in every way a liquid nutrient that you're just adding the water at home. We're just not shipping you a bottle full of water. We're shipping you the components and the empty bottles. You add the water yourself. And the reason that it's a high application rate is because we're trying to set this up for beginner growers as well as very experienced growers. You're the very experienced growers, the person who's grown, has 500 runs in their tent at home and has learned so much throughout the process, is going to be able to dig deep into this and learn about all the, take a look at all the ingredients and find out what's different between 3A and 4A and what, the chelated calcium is another thing. Calcium chelate is not something you'll see in other nutrient lines. Like I would love if you guys could find me any other nutrient line that's using a chelated calcium or calcium chelate powder in their nutrient line. I would love to see it because it's an expensive product, bottom line. And a lot of these other companies are not willing to provide, it messes with their margins and they don't want to provide the best possible results. So they just reduce the calcium at the end because they're using calcium nitrate. And we use a calcium chelate, which it doesn't carry anything else with it. So calcium chelate is just calcium and it's chelated, which means it's wrapped in another molecule that makes it easy for the plant to take up and it makes it easy for it to stay in suspension. So that, that's what you see in this bottle here, is there's nothing at the bottom. This is the calcium chelate mixed with the calcium nitrate. I think the 3A, I think, is like a 70-30 mix, and then the 4A is like a 50-50 mix with calcium chelate and calcium nitrate, which allows us to provide the high level of calcium that you need at the end while still reducing the nitrogen, reducing the nitrogen to an amount that is in line with late flower. So you still need over 100 parts per million of nitrogen, or about 100, but you want to keep that calcium really high. And if your only calcium product is calcium nitrate, that's 15% nitrogen and 19% calcium. You're almost adding as much nitrogen as you are calcium, and that's what you look at like crop salt or Jax. I think crop salt is just a calcium. Jax. There's another one I was recently looking at. The advanced nutrients powder, their salt nutrient, the Sensi Pro. Again, it's just pretty much just a calcium nitrate product. It's almost just straight calcium nitrate, and that's what our 1A and 2A is. Straight calcium nitrate. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying if that's the only calcium product that you have, you won't be able to get the correct part per million at the end, and you're going to end up with low calcium and high nitrogen, or way low calcium and nitrogen that's correct, but you sacrificed your calcium, or you sacrifice adding too much nitrogen to get the calcium you want. So, all right, last one here. pH up or down? Yeah, right. Okay, yes, thanks for reminding me. Just shelf life one's mixed. You can see how much I'm sweating there when I got that close. Okay, pH up or down? Eventually. It's not on the roster of stuff that's getting released next. Maybe we could add it. I know what we're doing for it, but we haven't, it's pH up and pH down is just pH up and pH down. So we would use phosphoric acid as our pH down. And honestly, I don't think we would sell a pH up. You should never really need a pH up. It's very rare. Maybe we will. I don't know. pH. It's one of those things. pH up. When you go buy pH up and pH down, you got a tiny bottle of pH up and a big bottle of pH down, because almost your tap water is never going to be too low in pH. Like, that's very rare that your tap water is too low in pH. So the only time you really need a pH up is when you mess up. And, usually we just dilute when we mess up. It happens, but pretty rarely. So it's not like something that you need. If everything's going well, which is how we're setting this up, like, we want people to have everything they need when everything's going well. And selling pH up, from our perspective, is just kind of like accounting for somebody messing up by putting too much pH down in. All right, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I will answer these questions. Still needs some help regarding shifting to New Zealand. James, let me message you. Didn't we talk last night? Let me message you. Sorry. We have like 3 people with the last name Smith, so we'll get together tonight. And I have to pH up my RO water. Okay, stop using RO water. Sensi Seeker. I'm gonna finish it here. Sensi Seeker. I don't know where you live. I don't know what your municipal water is like. There's no need for you to use RO water. Your municipal water, like I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you were here for that part, is most likely going to be within the suitable range for usually, what you're trying to. If there could be some reasons that you're using RO water, which I could get into. Bicarbonate. There's a few things that could be in your water that could be problematic. Pretty rarely in municipal tap water. If you're using well water, it could make sense. So I don't know what your situation is, so I shouldn't say stop using it. But usually with municipal water, and pretty often with tap water, it's fine the way it is, and it has the right amount of chlorine if it's municipal, not a damaging amount. So RO water. Well, I don't know why you would need to pH up your RO water. Your RO water should be coming out like in the high 6s or 7 or so. Like, it should be pretty close to just water, which would be it. So why would you need to pH up that? My tap water comes out at almost 9 pH. So that you would need pH down for. I would definitely go and get an ag suitability test on your pH, on your tap water, man. Like, if it's just, some bicarbonate, which is probably what that is, there's ways to account for that. And there's certain, things that you can do so you wouldn't need to run an RO system. I mean, you've already bought it, so like it can't hurt, I guess. Prohibition lands go all James Smith. I guess that's what's going on there. Yeah. Wow. I have just completely knocked everything over during the course of this thing. Super clumsy. Okay, guys. I'm gonna wrap it up. James, I will message you. I got some more filming to do tonight. Thank you for sticking with me. God, we got like 10 people here at the end. A lot of cool stuff coming. since you guys are still with me here, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek into something that we're going to be running, an ad campaign. So we're going to announce it at the end of the week, and we've got a few videos coming out, and I think you guys will like it. But I don't know if there was a meme a few years back where like people would. I don't know, like a good example is like, all right, so I'd be pouring the nutrients and I would like spill the nutrients, and then they would pan down to the nutrients and it would say send, it would like spell out send nudes. So we're gonna have a little ad campaign where we're gonna have people make videos, but instead of saying send nudes, it's gonna say send newts. And the best ones of those, we're gonna send a free starter kit to, and we'll prominently display the best ones, people who make the best send newts videos. So it's a little fun thing that we got going on this week with the launch of the product, which is at the end of the week. And you're going to see a lot of changes on the website. You're going to see a lot of new stuff. We're going to be running a ton of ads. So you're probably going to see some advertising from us on Meta, on Facebook and Instagram. You might get, might see quite a lot of it. But such is the way it works with launching a product like this. So yeah, and then we're also going to be doing an affiliate program here. So not affiliate program, but necessarily, but we're going to be sending starter kits to people who have like a certain level of followers, number of followers on social media, or people who are influential in the autoflower social media space. We will send a free starter kit to them, and we'll just ask that they post pictures of it and give an honest review of it. We're going to be doing that as well. So if anybody in the who's still here is aware of anybody, or you yourself have like over 5,000 followers, over 10,000 followers, like we're definitely happy to talk to you about sending a nutrient kit, and as long as just we post some pictures of it. So yeah, all right, guys, I think that's everything for you. Twitter autoflower. Yeah, Nova. Nova, why don't you? If you have, I don't know if you have Facebook. Hit us up on Instagram. Go to our Instagram, which is @speedrunseeds. Send us a message. Why don't we talk there? And if you had Twitter, which I guess is what, X now, hit us up on X. @speedrunseeds there too. Send us a message. We'll talk. So, okay, guys. There's Dustin, right? No, you just mentioned Dustin. Yeah, so Dustin has the nutrients. Dustin, Push and Phosphorus, sorry. I'm doxing his name. Not Dustin, that's a different guy. I get people confused. But yeah, he's got a nutrient kit, and a bunch more people are getting them. So there's one specific person that I'm not going to announce it. I'm going to let him announce that he's using these nutrients, but or her, could be a her. Yeah, a lot of them going out. So anybody that you know who you watch their content, who you follow them, you like them, they grow a lot of autoflowers, and you think that it would be a good match for them to run our nutrient line, hit them up and say, hey, you could get a free run of nutrients from these guys that have made a complete autoflower nutrition system that is, and we can never use the word guarantee because we can't control your environmentals, but it's the best chance that you will have of getting 1 pound plus yields out of any nutrient line out there. This is the best chance you will have of getting 1 pound plus yields. So if you want to see any of the influencers, social media people, growers that you like to watch or follow, if you want to see them get a 1 pound plus yield, this is a good place to start. And then they should, follow our content, come and interact with me on these lives. We're going to have a lot more educational content coming out soon here. We have a lot going on. So if they kind of stick with us and follow our system, keep their environmentals right, do the things that you got to do to get good yields, man, so possible to get 1 pound plus. So that's it. I'm going to wrap it up, guys. I love you guys. Thanks again for sticking around with me. This is a long video, and I did that on purpose because we're gonna cut it up and build Word. Okay, yeah. Okay. Build Word, yeah. Why don't you? Is it Explorer. Why don't you reach out to him or tell him to reach out to us? Anybody that you guys are aware of or anything like that, reach out to us on Twitter, Instagram. We're happy to talk about it. So, okay, guys, sayonara. Keep an eye out for more content on Full Auto. We're gonna have, that's all spilled and knocked over, but we're gonna have a lot of videos coming out of using it, the results. Oh, I promised I would show you guys the road. Still 10 people here. Okay, you're probably gonna lose audio. Just as a heads up.